You walked into a room today and decided who you liked. It took about 1/10 of a second. You did not feel it happen. You had no evidence, and you have been quietly defending that decision ever since. Your brain runs these little trials all day, and it never once asks you to sit on the jury. So here is every one of them, what each one gets wrong, and how to catch yourself doing it. Let us start with how fast this actually is, because it is faster than you think. Picture sitting down in a lecture hall. The teacher has not said a word yet. He has walked to the front, put down a bag, and turned around, and you have already decided this is going to be a long hour. Researchers once showed people short, silent clips of teachers. A few seconds, no sound, no idea what was being taught. Then they asked those viewers to rate them. Those ratings lined up closely with ratings from students who had sat through the entire term. Now, that does not mean a few seconds tells you whether someone can teach. It means both groups were reacting to the same surface. Posture, energy, warmth, a whole term of actual teaching barely moved the number. What you did in that lecture hall has a name. It is called thin slicing, and you did it to me in the first 4 seconds of this video. You just have not admitted it yet. Fine, you say. A few seconds is still a few seconds, so let me give you less. In one study, people were shown a stranger's face for 1/10 of a second and asked how trustworthy that person seemed. Then a second group got to look for as long as they wanted. The verdicts barely changed. What changed was confidence. The longer people looked, the more certain they became about the judgment they had already made in that first blink. Extra time did not make them more accurate. It made them harder to argue with. This is the 100-millisecond verdict, and it means the trial was over before you knew it had started. Everything after that first 1/10 of a second is not you deciding. It is you building the case. So what exactly did your brain decide in that 1/10 of a second? It only ever asks 2 questions. Question 1, is this person going to help me or hurt me? Question 2, could they actually pull it off? That is it. Warmth and competence. Almost every first impression you have ever formed is a single dot placed somewhere on that grid. Warm and capable, you admire them. Cold and capable, you respect them and you keep your distance. Warm and useless, you like them and you would never hire them. Cold and useless, and you do not think about them at all. Psychologists call these 2 axes warmth and competence, and you have already put me somewhere on that grid. You just did not know there was a grid, and the grid does not need much to work with. Sometimes it runs off the shape of a skull. 2 people walk into the same interview. Same qualifications, same answers. One of them has a round face, big eyes, a small chin, a high forehead. He gets described as honest, friendly, easy to work with, and he gets handed nothing important, because those are baby proportions, and your brain only has one setting for baby proportions. Protect it. Do not fear it. That setting fires on adults who happen to be shaped that way, and it drags a whole personality along with it. In courtrooms, it cuts both ways. Baby-faced defendants are less likely to be convicted of crimes that needed planning, and more likely to be found guilty of being careless. This is called baby-face overgeneralization. Now look at me. Round head, big eyes. You have believed every word so far, and I am a drawing. Faces are one thing. Let me do it with sound. 2 people read out the exact same boring fact. Same words, same order. One of them speaks with the accent you grew up around. The other one does not. Listeners rated the first one as more likely to be telling the truth. Nothing about the fact changed. What changed is that an unfamiliar accent takes your brain slightly more effort to process, and your brain has a bad habit. When something takes more effort to understand, it reads that effort as doubt. Not as I am working harder right now, just as that does not sound right. This is called processing fluency. Easy to hear gets quietly scored as more likely to be true. Nothing about the sentence changed, only how hard your ears had to work. And it does not stop at sound. It works on spelling. Names that are easier to pronounce get judged as more familiar, more trustworthy, and more likable than names that are not. Same trick as the accent. Wearing letters. One study looked at lawyers in American firms and found that the ones with easier to pronounce names sat higher up the ladder, and that held up even when researchers only compared names from the same background. So it is not just about where a name comes from, it is about how smoothly it goes down. This is the name pronounceability effect. Somewhere in your life, someone lost a coin flip because their name had too many syllables in it. There is a decent chance it was your coin. Here is one that shows how little it takes to flip an entire picture. Someone describes a stranger to you. Intelligent, skillful, hardworking, warm, determined, practical, careful. Sounds like a good person. Now the same list, one word swapped. Intelligent, skillful, hardworking, cold, determined, practical, careful, and suddenly it sounds like a complete completely different human being. In the original study, people given those two lists did not describe someone slightly different. They described opposites. Warm made determined mean driven. Cold made determined mean ruthless. Swapping other words on the list did almost nothing. Some words are load-bearing, and the rest of the impression hangs off them. These are called central traits, and someone once described a person to you in one word before you met them. You never met the person, you met the word. Now let us talk about what happens when somebody is rude to you. A car cuts you off on the way to work. What an absolute idiot. Selfish. Probably drives like that everywhere. 20 minutes later you cut someone off because you are late, and this is not a normal day, and honestly it was barely even a cut. Notice the difference. When other people act badly, you explain it with who they are. When you act badly, you explain it with what was happening around you. They get a personality. You get a whole situation, and it makes a sad kind of sense. You can see your own circumstances from the inside, and you cannot see anybody else's at all. This one is called the fundamental attribution error. You have a reason. They have a character flaw every single time. Quick one. And it is the silliest thing on this list. Take a photo of yourself alone. Now take the same face, same day, and stand in a group. You will look better in the second one. Your brain does not file every face in a group separately. It smooths them together into an average, and average faces get rated as more attractive than most individual ones. So standing in a crowd quietly borrows you a little bit of everyone else's face. It is called the cheerleader effect. It is a small effect, and it is real. Every group photo you have ever liked yourself in was not a good day. It was the people standing next to you. At this point, you might be thinking, all right, but I can tell when somebody is lying to me. Let us check. Across hundreds of studies, people spot lies about 54% of the time. A coin gets 50, and it is not because you are bad at looking, it is because you are built to believe. Your default setting with another human being is that they are telling the truth. That is not a flaw, by the way. Society does not function without it. Talking to people only works if believing is cheap and checking is rare. The price is that you are easy. This is called the truth default. And to be clear, this is not the opposite of learning to read people. Real signals exist, but you only catch them when you are actually watching, and almost nobody ever is. You did not fail to catch a liar today. You just were not looking, because you never are. And here is where all of this costs somebody a job. Somebody walks into an interview. Within about 30 seconds, you know. Then you spend the next 45 minutes asking questions and nodding. In one experiment, students were asked to predict how other students would perform. One group got the real information, past grades, class schedule. Another group got all of that, plus a face-to-face interview. The interview group did worse, and in some versions of this, interviewers were handed answers that were completely random, and they still walked out feeling like they had gotten a read on the person. An unstructured chat feels like information. Mostly it is just you, listening to yourself agree with the decision you made in the first 30 seconds. This is called the interview illusion. Somebody has decided your future in half a minute, and then spent an hour feeling thorough about it. Which brings us to the last one, and it is the one holding up all the others. Describe a friend to somebody else and listen to how confident you sound. He is like this. She always does that. Now have somebody describe you. Suddenly, it is not that simple. They have missed things. There is more going on. Ask people whether they know their friends better than their friends know them, and both sides say yes. Both sides also say their own outward behavior is a poor guide to who they really are, because they have got the hole inside. But when they look at somebody else's behavior, well, that is just who that person is. You get to be deep. Everybody else gets to be a summary. This is called the illusion of asymmetric insight, and every single judgment in this video only works because of this one. You are certain you can read them, and equally certain that nobody can read you. So is everybody else. So you cannot read strangers, and you decided otherwise before they opened their mouth. Fine. But here is the uncomfortable part. If your read on everyone else is this unreliable, what exactly makes you think the read on yourself is any better? That is the next one. Every lie your brain tells you about you, and it is worse than this one. Subscribe so it finds you, and tell me down in the comments which of these 12 got you. Be honest, you will not be, but try. Use your noodle. See you in the next one.